What would you do if the person you loved most, the person you trusted with your whole heart, turned out to be the cause of your deepest pain? Imagine a mother coming home one day to a truth so terrible it shatters her world, a secret so dark that it threatens to destroy everything she has ever believed about her family. This is not just a story about betrayal. It is about a nightmare unfolding in an ordinary Texas home, a place where love was supposed to protect, but instead, fear took hold. What happened next would shock the whole community, and the choice one sheriff made changed the course of this family's life forever. If you care about true crime told with respect and truth, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications now. You won't want to miss this story. In a quiet Texas town where life moved at a steady, predictable pace, families lived with the unspoken understanding that their homes were places of safety and love. People trusted their neighbors, children played freely in the streets, and the everyday routine gave a comforting sense of normalcy. But beneath this calm surface, behind the walls of one particular house, a nightmare was quietly unfolding, a nightmare that would shake the entire community and force everyone involved to face painful and complicated truths. This is the story of a mother whose world was shattered in an instant. A woman who believed in her husband, trusted him with her heart, and the well-being of their children. A mother who had no reason to doubt the man she had promised to share her life with. But then, one day, she uncovered a secret so dark, so terrible, that it changed everything she thought she knew about her family and herself. It was a betrayal that cut deeper than most, one that no mother should ever have to imagine. The very person who was supposed to protect her child became the source of unimaginable harm. This case is about much more than one family's tragedy. It touches on themes that challenge our understanding of love, trust, and protection. It forces us to ask difficult questions about how such a betrayal could happen and what it means for the safety of children everywhere. It reveals the moral struggles faced by those who must respond to such crimes. The law enforcement officers, the sheriff, the social workers, people who have the heavy responsibility of protecting the innocent while navigating a path through emotional devastation and legal complexity. The sheriff assigned to this case was a man respected in the community, known for his fairness and dedication. But when this terrible truth came to light, even he faced a deep personal and professional dilemma. How do you enforce the law when the lines between justice, mercy, and healing are blurred? How do you hold a family together when the pain threatens to tear it apart? This story does not offer easy answers. It shows us the human side of crime and punishment, the difficult decisions made behind closed doors, and the long road to finding some form of peace after betrayal. This is a story that asks us to confront uncomfortable realities, about the dangers hidden in places we think are safe, about the ways trauma touches every life it encounters, and about the strength it takes to face the truth, no matter how painful. It is a story of broken trust, of courage in the face of horror, and of a community struggling to come to terms with what happened in its midst. The story is difficult to hear, but it is important to listen. It reminds us that even in the most ordinary places, terrible things can happen, and it challenges us to be vigilant, compassionate, and determined to protect those who cannot protect themselves. This case is not just about crime, it is about human lives, broken and mended, and the quiet hope that even after darkness, some light can remain. Laura Jensen was the heart of her family. A woman in her early 30s, she was known by those around her as kind, caring, and fiercely protective of her 2 children. She worked part-time at a local bakery, balancing her job with the daily challenges of motherhood and managing a household. Laura had always dreamed of raising her children in a peaceful home, surrounded by love and safety. She cherished family dinners, weekend outings, and the simple moments that built a life full of warmth and trust. Friends described her as someone who put her family first, always ready to listen and support those she cared about. For Laura, her children were everything, and she did everything she could to shield them from harm. Daniel Jensen, her husband, was a man who seemed to have it all, a steady job as a mechanic, a calm demeanor, and a reputation for being a good father and husband. To the outside world, Daniel was the picture of reliability. Neighbors saw him mowing the lawn, coaching Little League, or helping with school projects. He rarely raised his voice, and his quiet presence was often mistaken for kindness. But beneath this calm exterior lay a darkness no one suspected. Daniel's hidden side was a secret he guarded fiercely, a secret that would soon come crashing into the light, forever changing the lives of those around him. What had started as a loving relationship slowly became one built on lies and fear, though few could see it coming. Emily Jensen, their 10-year-old daughter, was a bright, cheerful child with a smile that could light up any room. She was full of curiosity and innocence, a typical child with dreams of growing up and exploring the world. At school, Emily was shy but friendly, well-liked by her teachers and classmates. She loved reading stories, playing with her younger brother, and spending time with her mother. Her laughter was a common sound in the Jensen home, a reminder of childhood's simple joys. But beneath that smile, Emily was hiding pain no child should carry, a pain that was invisible to many, but one that would soon come to the attention of those who could no longer look away. Sheriff Mike Ramirez was a pillar of the community, a man respected for his dedication to justice and fairness. With decades of experience in law enforcement, he had seen many difficult cases, but none quite like this. Known for his calm approach and steady hand, Sheriff Ramirez was often called upon to handle the toughest situations. His commitment to protecting the vulnerable and seeking truth was unwavering, even when faced with cases that tested him personally and professionally. When Laura came to him with her horrifying discovery, Sheriff Ramirez understood the gravity of what lay ahead. His role would be to guide the investigation with care and integrity, ensuring that justice was served while supporting a family shattered by betrayal. Among those who would play a crucial role in uncovering the truth were neighbors and school officials who began to notice changes in Emily and the family's behavior. Mrs. Thompson, a kind-hearted woman who lived next door, often saw Laura outside with her children, but sometimes noticed a quiet sadness in her eyes. At school, Mrs. Garcia, Emily's teacher, remarked on Emily's sudden withdrawal and reluctance to participate in class, signs that something was wrong, though no one knew exactly what. These individuals, along with close family friends, would become key voices in piecing together the story behind closed doors. Their observations, small at first, would help reveal the full picture of a family struggling to hold itself together in the face of an unimaginable betrayal. Laura Jensen's discovery came one afternoon when she returned home earlier than usual from work. The house was unusually quiet, too quiet for a place usually filled with the sounds of children playing and everyday life. As she stepped inside, something felt off, an uneasy feeling that made her heart race. She noticed the front door was slightly ajar, and her first thought was that maybe the children had left it open by accident. But as she moved further inside, a cold wave of fear settled over her. The living room was in disarray, as if someone had been searching for something in a hurry. And then she heard a soft sound coming from upstairs, a sound that no mother ever wants to hear. Carefully, she climbed the stairs, every step heavier than the last. When she reached the hallway, she saw a door slightly open, and inside, the sight that would haunt her forever. Her husband, Daniel, was there with their daughter Emily. The moment was impossible to describe with simple words, something deeply wrong, something beyond understanding. Laura's world shattered in that instant. The trust she had built over the years was ripped away, replaced by a horror so complete it left her numb and unable to move at first. The abuse, as later uncovered, had not just started that day. It was a hidden nightmare, going on in silence for months, maybe even longer. How Daniel had managed to keep this secret was a question that many would ask with disbelief. He had presented himself as a devoted father and husband, masking the truth behind a calm and loving facade. There were moments when Laura sensed something was wrong, Emily's sudden withdrawal, strange moods, unexplained bruises, but she never imagined the depths of the betrayal lying beneath. The motive behind such darkness was never fully clear. Was it a secret addiction? A twisted need for control? Or something deeper, buried in Daniel's past? Experts would later try to understand the mind behind such acts, but for Laura and the family, the question was less about why and more about how to survive the aftermath. Denial played its part too. For a time, Laura tried to convince herself that she must be mistaken, that there was another explanation. But the truth was undeniable, and the pain was real. As word slowly spread through the small community, whispers grew into quiet conversations and then into open fear. Neighbors who had once waved warmly began to look with suspicion. Friends and family struggled to comprehend how such a secret could have been kept hidden so long. Laura's shock and disbelief gave way to a flood of emotions, anger, sorrow, and confusion. She found herself trapped in a painful new reality, wondering how to protect her children and what the future held. The day ended with a heavy silence. The police had been called, and the sheriff was on his way. But for Laura, the worst was still unfolding. She was about to face a battle far greater than she had ever imagined. The safety of her children, the trust in her family, and the very meaning of justice would all be tested. The story was far from over, and what came next would leave the entire town stunned and struggling to understand. When Laura Jensen finally gathered the strength to call the sheriff's office, her voice trembled, barely steady enough to explain the terrible truth she had uncovered. She told Sheriff Mike Ramirez what she had seen and what she feared was happening to her daughter. The words were heavy, almost impossible to say aloud, but Laura knew she had to act quickly to protect Emily and the rest of her family. The phone call was the beginning of a long, painful process that would bring the darkest parts of this family's life into the light. Sheriff Ramirez was a man who had faced many difficult situations in his career, but when he heard Laura's report, a mix of shock and resolve filled him. His first instinct was to ensure the safety of the child while keeping a clear head to lead the investigation professionally. Though personally affected by the tragedy unfolding before him, he maintained the calm and steady approach that his role demanded. He understood the importance of careful action, knowing that one wrong step could harm the victim or weaken the case. The investigation began immediately. Forensic experts were called in to examine Emily and gather any physical evidence that could confirm the abuse. Laura was interviewed multiple times, not only to provide details but also to support the child's safety and well-being. Daniel Jensen was questioned, but from the start, he denied any wrongdoing. His denial was firm, and without clear evidence at the beginning, the investigation faced a difficult road ahead. Interviews with neighbors, friends, and school officials were conducted to piece together a timeline and gather additional information. Protecting Emily became the highest priority. Arrangements were made to place her in a safe environment while the investigation continued. The challenge was immense, balancing the need to protect a vulnerable child with the responsibility to treat Daniel as innocent until proven guilty. Sheriff Ramirez and his team walked a tightrope, aware that the family's future hung in the balance as they worked to uncover the truth. Obstacles appeared early in the process. Without obvious signs or conclusive evidence, some in the community questioned the accusations. Rumors spread, and the family faced the harsh glare of public scrutiny. The media caught wind of the case, and headlines painted a troubling picture that only added pressure to everyone involved. False leads and confusion slowed progress at times, forcing investigators to re-examine details and verify information carefully. The emotional toll on Laura and Emily was immense, with every interview and test reopening wounds. Throughout it all, Sheriff Ramirez remained committed to justice tempered with compassion. He understood that this case was not just about enforcing the law but about healing a family and a community torn apart by pain. His careful approach aimed to ensure that the truth would come out clearly and fairly, with the best interests of the child at the center. It was a delicate and difficult journey, one that tested the limits of law enforcement and human endurance. As news of the case slowly made its way into the public eye, the quiet town found itself thrust into an unwanted spotlight. What had once been whispered among neighbors became headline news, stirring waves of shock and outrage far beyond the community's borders. The media descended with cameras and reporters, eager for details, often pressuring those involved for answers before the full story was clear. This sudden attention added another layer of difficulty to an already painful situation, turning private tragedy into a public spectacle. Child Protective Services stepped in quickly, working alongside law enforcement to ensure that Emily was safe and receiving the care she needed. Their role was critical. Not only did they provide immediate protection, but they also began the longer process of supporting Emily's emotional recovery. Legal authorities coordinated with investigators to build a case that could stand up in court, knowing that every step had to be carefully documented and handled with precision. The complexity of the situation demanded a coordinated effort from many professionals, each bringing their expertise to bear on a deeply troubling case. Forensic psychologists and child advocacy experts were brought in to help Emily tell her story in a way that was both safe and reliable. These specialists understood the delicate balance required when working with children who had experienced trauma. Their goal was to ensure that Emily's voice was heard without causing further harm. They used gentle methods to piece together the timeline and details of what had happened, helping the investigation move forward with greater clarity and compassion. Throughout this process, the emotional toll on Laura and Emily was immense. Laura, already broken by the discovery, found herself reliving the horror with every meeting, every interview, and every examination. Her strength was tested daily, caught between the role of protector and the pain of betrayal. Emily, a child struggling to understand the confusing and frightening experiences she had endured, faced the challenge of healing while the world around her seemed to watch and judge. The support systems around them worked tirelessly, but the journey was long and painful. Sheriff Ramirez faced his own difficult decisions during this time. He had to protect Emily's privacy and safety while maintaining the integrity of the investigation under intense public scrutiny. Balancing transparency with confidentiality, he carefully managed information to prevent jeopardizing the case or harming those involved. His leadership was critical in navigating the many challenges posed by the growing attention and complex legal procedures. A turning point in the investigation came when a neighbor, Mr. Collins, came forward with information that shifted the case dramatically. He recalled overhearing troubling sounds from the Jensen home months earlier but had hesitated to get involved. His testimony added a vital piece to the puzzle, helping to establish a timeline and support Emily's account. This new evidence gave investigators stronger ground to continue pursuing justice and brought fresh hope to Laura and the community. The case divided the town. Some rallied around the Jensen family, offering support, prayers, and a belief in Laura's courage and Emily's strength. Others found it hard to accept such a dark truth within their midst, clinging to denial or suspicion. Rumors and judgments spread, creating tension between neighbors and friends. This division added to the strain on everyone involved, making the path to healing even more complicated. The community's struggle reflected the difficult reality of facing such crimes. How do you reconcile the love for a place with the horror that can exist within it? When the evidence finally gathered enough strength, Daniel Jensen was arrested. The moment law enforcement arrived at the family home was tense and somber. Daniel was taken into custody quietly, without resistance, but the weight of what had happened hung heavily in the air. Neighbors watched with a mix of disbelief and sorrow. For many, the man they had known as a caring father now stood accused of the worst betrayal imaginable. The community's shock was palpable, conversations hushed in public spaces, and some people struggled to reconcile the image of Daniel with the accusations against him. News of the arrest spread quickly, and the legal process moved into full swing. At the bail hearings, Daniel's defense team fought to keep him out of jail, arguing against the strength of the evidence and questioning the reliability of witness testimonies. The prosecution countered with detailed accounts, emphasizing the need to protect the victim and prevent further harm. The courtroom became a battleground where legal strategies were carefully deployed by both sides. The tension was high as everyone waited to see how the judge would rule, knowing that the decisions made in these early stages could affect the entire course of the trial. For Laura Jensen, the arrest was both a relief and a new source of pain. Publicly, she found herself thrust into the spotlight, navigating interviews and community attention while privately wrestling with grief, anger, and fear. She struggled to process the betrayal while remaining strong for her children, especially Emily, who needed her more than ever. The emotional strain was overwhelming. Laura faced moments of doubt and exhaustion, yet she held on to hope that justice would be served and her family could begin to heal. Sheriff Mike Ramirez remained deeply involved throughout this period. He made public statements stressing the seriousness of the case and the commitment of law enforcement to follow the facts wherever they led. His words were measured but firm, aimed at reassuring the community and supporting the victims while maintaining the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. Ramirez knew that the case had become more than just a legal matter. It was a test of the community's trust in the justice system and in the officers charged with protecting them. Unfortunately, with the case under intense scrutiny, both the Jensen family and Sheriff Ramirez began receiving threats and backlash. Some people directed anger and blame toward Laura, questioning her decisions, while others targeted the sheriff for his handling of the case. Social media became a battleground of opinions, some supportive, others hostile. This created a climate of fear and tension that complicated an already difficult situation. Protecting the family and ensuring the safety of all involved became an urgent concern. As the days turned into weeks, the question that weighed on everyone's mind was simple yet powerful: would justice truly be served? The uncertainty built a tense atmosphere in the town and courtroom alike. Every move made by lawyers, witnesses, and officials was watched closely. The families waited anxiously for the trial, hoping that the truth would emerge clearly and that the law would provide some measure of peace. The path ahead was uncertain, but the desire for justice was unwavering. The courtroom was filled with a heavy silence as the trial began, a mix of anticipation and dread hanging in the air. The prosecution opened with a clear, determined statement. They laid out their case carefully, painting a picture of betrayal and harm, of a child whose innocence had been stolen by the very person meant to protect her. They spoke of evidence, witnesses, and the emotional scars left behind, all to convince the jury of Daniel Jensen's guilt. The words were strong but measured, designed to tell the truth without sensationalizing the pain. The defense quickly responded, challenging every claim. They argued that the evidence was weak and unreliable, that Emily's memories might be confused or influenced by others. They worked hard to cast doubt, suggesting alternative explanations and questioning the motives of those who had come forward. Their aim was clear: to protect their client and avoid the harshest penalties. They brought up Daniel's past good character, his role as a caring father before these accusations, hoping to create uncertainty in the minds of the jurors. Testimonies from Laura and Emily were among the most difficult moments of the trial. Laura spoke with a voice that trembled but never broke, recounting the day she discovered the truth and the struggle that followed. Her words were filled with pain, love, and determination to see justice done. Emily's testimony was given carefully through child psychologists who helped her share what she had experienced without causing her further harm. Her courage moved many in the courtroom, making the horror of the crime undeniable and personal. Forensic evidence played a key role in supporting the prosecution's case. Experts presented physical findings that aligned with the accounts given by Laura and Emily. There were also surprising revelations, small details uncovered during the investigation that painted a clearer picture of the abuse and its effects. These facts, combined with witness testimonies, made it harder for the defense to maintain its position. The defense countered with various strategies, including attempts to discredit witnesses and suggest that family conflicts or misunderstandings could explain the situation. They brought up unrelated issues from Laura and Daniel's past, hoping to distract and confuse the jury. These character attacks were difficult to hear but common in cases where so much is at stake. The courtroom became a battleground of words and emotions, each side fighting for its version of the truth. Some moments in court shocked the community deeply. The raw emotions of a mother's testimony, the innocence of a child reliving trauma, and the fierce arguments of lawyers all combined to create a tense and powerful atmosphere. People who had followed the case closely felt the weight of every word, every tear, and every silence. Sheriff Ramirez was called to testify as well. His role in the investigation was outlined, and he spoke with honesty about the challenges faced and the careful work done to protect Emily while pursuing justice. His presence in court reinforced the seriousness of the case and the commitment of law enforcement to uncover the truth. He answered questions calmly and firmly, adding credibility to the prosecution's narrative. Outside the courtroom, the media covered every development extensively. Reporters gathered outside, discussing each testimony and debating the strengths and weaknesses of the case. Public opinion swayed with every new piece of information, creating a mix of hope, doubt, anger, and sympathy across the community. The trial was no longer just a legal proceeding, it had become a public event that touched many lives, forcing everyone to confront uncomfortable realities. After days of testimony, arguments, and long hours of careful consideration, the jury finally reached a decision. The courtroom held its breath as the foreperson stood to deliver the verdict. Daniel Jensen was found guilty. The weight of the decision settled over the room like a heavy cloud, relief for some, sorrow for others, and a profound sense of justice for those who had endured so much pain. The guilty verdict was a moment of reckoning, an official acknowledgement of the truth that Laura and Emily had bravely shared. The sentencing that followed reflected the severity of the crimes. Daniel was given a long prison term, meant to protect the community and serve as a warning that such betrayals would not be tolerated. Yet, even as the sentence was handed down, the legal process was far from over. Appeals were filed, delays threatened to extend the pain, and the family had to brace for more battles ahead. The legal system, with all its complexity, both offered justice and prolonged the wounds. For Laura and Emily, the verdict was a mixture of relief and continued struggle. Laura felt a measure of peace knowing that Daniel would no longer have power over her family, but the emotional scars remained raw and deep. Emily, though still young, showed remarkable strength, slowly beginning the slow process of healing. The verdict did not erase what had happened, but it was a step toward reclaiming their lives. At times, the relief was shadowed by the pain of memories and the uncertainty of the future, yet hope persisted. Sheriff Mike Ramirez reflected on the case with a solemn understanding of its impact. He recognized the difficult path that had led to justice and the toll it had taken on everyone involved. For him, the verdict was more than a legal outcome, it was a moment that reaffirmed the purpose of his work, even when the road was hardest. He knew that protecting the vulnerable meant facing uncomfortable truths and standing firm in the face of community pressures. The town began efforts to heal, though tensions lingered beneath the surface. Some community members came together to support Laura and Emily, offering kindness and understanding. Others struggled with disbelief or discomfort, unable to fully accept the painful reality. The process of recovery was slow and uneven, marked by moments of unity and division. The case left a lasting mark on the community, reminding everyone of both human frailty and resilience. In the wider discussion, questions arose about the effectiveness of the legal and social systems in protecting children and punishing those who harm them. The case highlighted strengths and weaknesses, how dedicated professionals can work tirelessly for justice, but also how delays, challenges, and public scrutiny can complicate healing. It became a call to action for better resources, more awareness, and stronger protections for the most vulnerable. The story of Laura, Emily, and Daniel Jensen was painful, but it was also a reminder of the ongoing need to fight for safety, truth, and justice in every community. The impact of abuse on a child and a family runs deep, far beyond what can be seen on the surface. For children like Emily, the scars left by betrayal affect every part of their development, their sense of safety, trust in others, and understanding of the world. Psychological effects can include anxiety, depression, difficulties in school, and struggles in forming healthy relationships. Families must navigate not only the trauma itself but also the ripple effects that touch every member, changing dynamics and forcing difficult conversations about healing and forgiveness. The road ahead is often long and uncertain, filled with setbacks and moments of hope. Sheriff Mike Ramirez faced more than just legal challenges during this case. Balancing his duty to enforce the law with the need to maintain community trust was a constant struggle. He understood that law enforcement is about more than arrests and trials, it's about protecting people and helping a community heal. At times, Ramirez wrestled with his own emotions, knowing that the people he served were hurting deeply. His role required strength and compassion, guiding his team with fairness and sensitivity, even when faced with criticism or pressure from the public. Child abuse remains a significant problem across Texas and the United States. Cases like this one shine a harsh light on how common and devastating these crimes are. Experts warn that abuse is often hidden, with many victims too scared or unable to speak out. Prevention depends on education, vigilance, and strong support networks. Schools, communities, and families play vital roles in recognizing warning signs and taking action before harm occurs. Agencies must work together to provide resources, counseling, and protection for those at risk. The conversation about child abuse is ongoing, requiring constant attention and commitment. Specialists in child psychology and social work stress the importance of early detection and intervention. They recommend training for teachers and caregivers to recognize signs of abuse, creating safe spaces where children feel comfortable speaking up, and providing trauma-informed care to support recovery. While every case is unique, the shared goal remains the same: to stop abuse before it starts and to help victims rebuild their lives with dignity and hope. Awareness and compassion are the foundation of this effort. Communities must remain vigilant, ready to listen and act, not turning away from the uncomfortable realities that abuse presents. Only through a united and caring response can victims begin to heal and families find a path forward. This case reminds us all that child abuse is not a problem isolated to distant places. It can happen anywhere, even in the most ordinary of neighborhoods. Despite the darkness of these experiences, stories like Laura and Emily's also highlight human resilience. With the right support and time, victims and families can grow beyond trauma, finding strength they never knew they had. Healing is neither quick nor easy, but it is possible. This journey requires patience, understanding, and the willingness to face difficult truths together. Through this process, families learn to rebuild trust, create new memories, and regain hope for the future. After the trial ended and Daniel Jensen was sentenced, life for Laura and Emily began a new chapter, one marked by slow, steady steps toward healing. Laura dedicated herself to creating a safe and loving environment for her children, focusing on rebuilding trust and normalcy. Therapy became a regular part of their lives, with both mother and daughter working through the trauma at their own pace. Emily showed remarkable resilience, gradually returning to school and reconnecting with friends, though the memories of what she endured remained a quiet part of her story. Laura found strength in advocacy, choosing to share her experience with others to help prevent similar tragedies and support victims of abuse. Sheriff Mike Ramirez continued his work in law enforcement, but the case stayed with him in a profound way. It was a defining moment in his career, one that tested his values, challenged his resolve, and deepened his understanding of the complexities involved in protecting vulnerable members of the community. Ramirez often reflected on the delicate balance between enforcing the law and offering compassion. His experience with the Jensen family inspired him to push for better training for officers in handling abuse cases and to encourage community programs focused on prevention and support. The case sparked conversations throughout the town and beyond, leading to reforms aimed at strengthening child protection efforts. Local organizations partnered with law enforcement and social services to develop outreach programs designed to educate families, train educators to spot signs of abuse, and provide accessible counseling services. These initiatives sought to create safer environments for children and to ensure that victims and their families would not have to face the challenges Laura and Emily endured alone. While no system is perfect, the lessons learned from this tragedy help drive meaningful change. Despite these efforts, challenges and controversies continued. Some questioned whether justice had been fully served or whether more could have been done sooner to protect Emily. The community grappled with lingering feelings of mistrust and concern about how to prevent similar incidents in the future. Yet, these difficult conversations were essential, helping to keep awareness alive and pushing for continued improvements. Amidst the pain and struggle, the story of Laura and Emily stands as a message of hope and recovery. It shows the power of courage in the face of darkness and the importance of speaking out. Their journey reminds us that healing is possible, even after the deepest wounds. By sharing their story, they became advocates for change, inspiring others to stand up against abuse and to build communities where every child can feel safe and loved. Their strength shines as a beacon, encouraging vigilance, compassion, and the ongoing fight for justice. This story brings forward powerful lessons about betrayal, courage, justice, and the responsibilities we all share as a community. It shows how trust, once broken in the most painful way, can challenge even the strongest among us. Yet, it also reveals the strength that people find within themselves, the courage to face harsh truths, to fight for justice, and to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The journey of Laura and Emily reminds us that healing is possible, but it requires support, vigilance, and compassion from everyone around. Now, take a moment to think about this. How would you respond if you uncovered a betrayal so deep within your own family? What choices would you make when faced with protecting a loved one from harm? And when law enforcement steps into such personal and painful situations, what role should they play to balance justice and care? These are not easy questions, but they are important ones, questions that touch on the very core of our values and humanity. We invite you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Please do so with kindness and respect, understanding that stories like this affect real people and real lives. Your words can create a space for healing, awareness, and support. Remember, protecting the vulnerable, whether children, family members, or neighbors, is a responsibility that belongs to all of us. By staying alert, speaking out, and standing together, we can help create safer communities where trust is rebuilt, and hope can grow. Thank you for staying with us through this difficult but important story. We know it's not easy to hear, but stories like these need to be told so we can learn, understand, and help protect those who are most vulnerable. If you found this story meaningful, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming true crime stories. We have more gripping and carefully told cases coming your way soon, stories that shine a light on truth, courage, and justice. Before you go, remember this: behind every headline, behind every case, there is a real family living with real pain. Let's all stay aware of the signs, stay compassionate in our communities, and above all, stay kind.